Welcome back, coders! I'm Miss Blair, and I will be leading you through the Coding Camp series. I want to let you know that this series builds upon each lesson. The first lesson, Talk to the Animals, was posted on September 1st. It goes over the basics of Scratch and vocabulary you'll need to know. Feel free to start there and catch up. These videos aren't going anywhere. Okay, let's begin our lesson. It's called Catch the Butterfly. Start by going to the website scratch.mit.edu. Then we click on Create. Most computer games use a score to show how well you've done. This game uses a score to track how many times the cat catches a butterfly. The score will be stored in a special part of the code called a variable. To make the game more realistic, the sprites will also use animation to make it look as though they are running or flying. Today's key concepts is using variables. Variables are special parts of a program that store information. In this game, the score is a variable. Variables can change as the program runs. The score in this game can go up or down. Variables have a name that is used to point to a part of the computer's memory. A value is then stored in that part of the memory. All right, coders, let's get coding. First, we want to do certain things when our game starts. So we want certain things to happen to our cat when the game starts. So let's go to Events. And we want our game to start when our flag is clicked. So we are going to use when flag clicked. Motion. We want our cat to go to the very center of the stage. So remember, that is the go to XY. In previous videos, we go over how Scratch uses a grid. So if you go back, you can learn exactly what X equals 0, Y equals 0 means. Looks. We want to set our size to 50%. We want our cat to be smaller. We want that to happen every time we start our game. So now we want our cat to be able to move right, left, up, and down. We have done this in a previous game, so I'm not going to spend too much time going back over it, but we'll build the code together. So we go to Events, and when a certain key is pressed is what we're going to choose. So mine starts off with spacebar, but I want it to do the right arrow. We're going to start with moving right. So when the right arrow key is pressed, we want our sprite to change costume. So that's under Looks, Next Costume. This will show that he's running, because if you look under Costumes, there's his feet, and if we switch costumes, his feet look like they're running up. So that's going to be how it looks like he's going to switch costumes. So when right arrow is pressed, we want the next costume to pop up. Now we want him to move. We're going to have him point in direction 90. And we're going to have him move 10 steps. Very good. So we're going to do this 3 more times. Instead of building the code all 3 times, remember what we do? We right click, duplicate. And we just drag it over and click. Easy peasy. So let's do our left arrow. And then we need to make this negative 90, right? Because we want him to move to the left, which is what that negative means. Duplicate it again. And let's go up. So for the up, we want it to be 0. Because we want him to look like he's facing up, like that. And then we're going to duplicate it one last time. Scroll down to down arrow. And we want him to point in direction 180. So he's looking down. Awesome. So if you need to pause and go back to make these codes or to work on your duplication, feel free to do so. Now we are going to work on that variable, which is our key concept. So we've already had a score in some of our other games. So let's go to Variables. We are going to make a variable, and it's going to be titled Score. Click OK or press Enter, and you should see the score pop up on your screen. Since this is an important part of our game, we want to keep the blue check mark checked so that we can see our score in our game. Now, in order to set the score to 0 every time we start our game, remember that's in variables, and we are going to drag set my variable to 0. Remember, we want it to happen when our flag is clicked, so that is why it's at the bottom of this code. We're going to drop it down and choose score. Very good. Now our cat needs something to chase. So in this game, I chose a butterfly. We are going to add a sprite. By now you know how to draw a sprite, so if you want to draw your own sprite, you absolutely can. I am just going to use the butterfly that is found inside the library. I like this one. Up to you which one you use. You can have your cat chase something different. It's not going to change. So let's give our butterfly a code. Now our butterfly's code is a lot more difficult than our cat's code because our cat only needs to do things with the arrows, but our butterfly needs to move in unpredictable ways. So we will be using some motion control, sensing, sound, operators. We've got a lot going on. All right, we want our butterfly code to start the same time as our cat code. So that is under events when the flag is clicked. We want to reset the butterfly's timer. So remember, timer is under sensing. We're going to reset the timer because later on in here we're going to add timer in. So we want to make sure to reset it at the very beginning. Let's make our butterfly smaller than our cat. So we're going to go to looks, set size to. Since our cat is 50%, we're going to make our butterfly 40%. And we want our butterfly to go to a certain place on the grid. So we are going to go to motion, go to X, Y, and X should be 0, and Y should be 100. We want our butterfly to point in direction 90. And now for the movement. So we've got some control things to add in. So from control, we're going to repeat until. So we've got this loop, repeat until. So what do we want it to repeat? Let's put in some math here. Remember, math is found under operators, the green buttons. And we want the greater than symbol. So this top one, repeat until the timer is greater than 30. So in here we're going to type in 30, and then we go to sensing. We're going to drag our timer into that first spot. So this means repeat until the timer is greater than 30. We want it to move 4 steps because we want our butterfly to be slower than us. So this would be something that you can come back after you're done building your code and play around with how many steps your butterfly can move. Obviously, the faster your butterfly, the harder the game. Now we want to turn certain degrees. So drag and drop. But I want this part to be random. I want my butterfly, just like in real life, to just flit about and I have no idea where it's going. So remember, random is also a math. So we pick random and we're going to drop that where it says 15. And we want it to be -5 and +5. So it's going to move randomly -5 to +5 degrees. Then we want it to change costume so it looks like it is flying. So we do next costume. And we don't want our butterfly to fly off the screen. So that code is if on edge bounce because we want it to come back. So that is under motion. And we have to scroll just a little bit. There it is. If on edge bounce. We have another if then statement. So that's in control. If something happens, then we're going to make the computer do something. So if the butterfly is touching our sprite. So remember, sensing has to deal with anything that we're touching. So we're going to drag over the touching, drop down, and we want to choose sprite 1. So if the butterfly is touching sprite 1, then let's play a sound so we know audibly that pop, we have made our goal. So play sound pop until done. We want to change the score by 1. So we have our variables, change. We want it to say my score by 1. And then we want the butterfly to move to a completely random part of our stage so the game is harder. Because it wouldn't be fair if the butterfly just stayed right there. It would be a not very fun game. So now we want to motion, because we have to give it X and Y coordinates. But if we want it to be random, remember how we do that? We're going to set X to, remember, pick random is under operators. So X on the X-axis, we want our butterfly to randomly go anywhere that is -180 to +180, meaning it's going to pop up anywhere along the horizontal part of our game, of our stage. And then we also need to set the Y coordinates, our up and down coordinates. So we're going to scroll set Y to, and we also want that to be random. Under operators, we are going to pick random, and this is going to be -140 to +140. Very good. Now at the very bottom, we want to add a code that says game over. So remember, that's under looks. We have say hello. We're going to drag that to the very bottom, and we're going to type in game over. Awesome. That is all of your butterflies code right there. Now let's add a fun backdrop. I'm going to put my butterflies outdoors. And look at this little, I think it's a meadow, but it says forest. Okay, let's make it large and start our game. So remember, you're going to start your game by pressing the green flag and then control your cat sprite using the up, down, right, left arrows in order to catch your butterfly. So they got bigger. There we go. So I know that my butterfly is showing up random. It's bouncing on the edge. There we go. Very good. All right, friends. We have done so much in the past lessons where you can take this simple code and make it your own. We've learned how to add music so you can make your own sounds. We've learned how to draw our own backgrounds. You can go in here and you can change how fast they move. Have fun with it. I would love to see your projects when you're finished. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and be sure to check back in next week for a new lesson.